Welcome to Markers and Milestones, where we explore educational opportunities for young men and women beyond traditional college, all from a Christ-centered perspective. I'm Lee Bortons, and I'm here with my co-host, Amanda Kleist. Today is Wednesday, January 24th, 2024, and we're joined by Matthew J. Smith. He's a doctor, well, PhD. He's a founder of Hildegard College, and we're really excited to have you on. I have a lot of questions for you today, so thanks for being here.
I'm really thrilled. I love classical conversations. Some of our best applicants, this will be no surprise to you all, are the mature and godly students that we hear from CC communities. So really excited to make this connection.
Well, thanks for that. So, usually I ask the nuts and bolts, but the Hildegard's a new place. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, Amanda, can I ask some philosophy questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think your website's intriguing, and I wanted to read a phrase on there and just have you explain it.
Okay.
Hold on. For some reason, Amanda, how do I turn off my team so it'll stop beeping at me?
You can just close Teams.
I did, and it's still beeping at me.
Oh, pass then.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Anyway, Dr. Smith founded, is it Hildegard? Am I saying that right?
Hildegard College, yeah.
Okay. In 2022, with the conviction that higher education needs a reset. That's true. Where typical universities are growing ever larger into multiversities, abandoning the traditional liberal arts and giving students a predominantly anonymous learning experience, Dr. Smith argues that the future of quality education, especially Christian education, is focused, tight-knit, rigorous, and recommitted to the classics of the liberal arts tradition. I don't know if you can get your website pulled up in front of you, but I would love you to unpack a lot of the words and phrases in that sentence.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe a way to answer that is sort of to say a bit about the provenance of Hildegard College. And when I say higher education needs a reset, why I think that is, Hildegard College was founded not just by myself, but by a team of people who have experience at mainstream universities, lots of Christian universities, and also by a community of entrepreneurs and pastors. I taught, for instance, at a comprehensive Christian university here in the Los Angeles area for about 10 years. And I began to notice the habits of the operating habits that universities use to teach students, and how easy it is to give into the temptation in these sorts of environments to treat students as one of two things, either as prototypes to work, right? To train them in a specific discipline, to prepare them for a particular career, and in so doing, to really neglect the education and foundational things they need, not only for their own formation, but also for to succeed, to understand fundamental human needs, desires, and behaviors that will affect their work. Or universities would, in our experience, typically invest in students' liberal arts education, but by that, instead of approaching them as the liberal arts, the arts of freedom, the things that, especially as Christians in Christ, we can find freedom in, would treat them as kind of mini future professional academics. So if you look at and I know that you may have had and have guests on the podcast that may or may not agree with this, but in my experience, English departments, history departments, philosophy departments, mathematics departments are often, not always, often designed around the profession of being an English professor, a history professor, a philosophy professor, and so forth. And that's really, really different from a study of literature and of writing and of history and philosophy and these things for the sake of ordering one's soul and preparing them for life. So when I say higher education needs a reset, I'm not implicating people at these universities. The ones I've taught at have been full of incredibly talented, generous, thoughtful, caring faculty, but rather that the modern university and Christian universities have assumed this model almost by historical accident. I think have taken on something like some form of secular view of forming young people, where it's either you're going to become a member of the workplace or you're going to become a kind of future academic, despite the fact that only a fraction of graduates and liberal arts majors do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, would you agree with that, Amanda? Amanda's more tied to the university systems than I am.
I the conceptualization of the need for how you treat a student with a goal. Most students are walking in with a goal with either their own or their parents, that the outcome of getting a job is the outcome parents are often asking for. But it's also true that in older times, the university model was about character formation, and you had things like morals tutors and previous iterations, like when we talk in different centuries. So there's a lot of truth in what Matt's saying, but it isn't only driven by the university model, it's driven by the expectation of the parent and the family coming in right now too. And that's a different conversation than the one you're just having. So I appreciate what he's saying, and it can resonate well. It isn't solely residing in the institution.
So does that mean we need a lot of Dr. Smiths and a lot of new colleges in order to make it so the parents actually have a different question? That until we've developed the Christian formation of this next generation, it's just the way it's going to be.
I don't think we're at the point where we should give up, and I don't know that a lot is the answer. I think we have to have a critical mass. But anyway, let's go back to Matthew Smith and Hildegard College, because this could go way funnier.
Right into the
may not be this time.
Well, so how are they anonymous learning experiences? Well, what did you mean by that?
I'm really referring to the sort of economy of scale. So you have a lot of students. Two things. One is the size, right? So, okay, a professor has office hours for 4 hours a week, and they're sitting in their office, and you can go to the office hours and be mentored by them. Sure. But if you're in a class, average class size of even 20, 25, 30 students, which is remarkably small for the national average, but even if you were in a class of 25 students, you can be the level of engagement a student has with the subject matter and with the faculty member obviously diminishes the bigger the class size is. So I mean, full transparency, and I don't, I went to Biola University and was part of a wonderful English department there, and was part of a wonderful honors college called Torrey Honors College, which still exists. And my faculty mentor was Amanda's husband, Dr. Aaron Kleiss.
Full transparency, yeah.
And I had a really, really good experience there. I don't want to make wholesale claims about what's possible, but when all human activities, in my view, all really human drive and creativity and the drive to change, which includes the willingness to learn and grow, comes from loving what you're doing. And you love what you're doing, especially when you're doing it in relationship. And so relationships, actually knowing one another, and CC communities and parents probably know this better than most teachers, relationships take work and they take time. They're practical, they have practical needs. And so an anonymous learning experience for students is partly due to the scale of the university and the classes, but it's also influenced by the ways that universities typically ask students to choose classes and to choose majors and to find their way through. Looks more like a consumer model than it does a mentor-driven educational model that you might have imagined happening in different places in the West long ago.
Where the teachers knew what they were doing, not the students, and the teachers told their master told the disciples, this is what you need to study in order to get to where you should be, where you're going, whether it's in the medical field or somewhere else.
Exactly. And where prospective students, before they go in, know this is what this school is about. I'm going to go here to learn to be a pastor, or I'm going to go here to learn medicine, or to get a grammar school education. And the parents understood what that meant. But now, I mean, if you ask a college student, a college freshman at a mid to large size university, why did you choose this school? One answer that you're going to get a lot is because of the options. There are so many options here. I have 75 majors to choose from or more, and I can be part of this club, and I can join this extracurricular group and this one. And that's nothing wrong with options, but now you have, in a student body, let's say of 5,000 students, you have 2,500 different educational paths that are possible. Making up those numbers, but something along those lines, who knows? And who's looking after each of those educational paths? So I would pose to parents, for instance, one question that's good to ask of a college, if you're looking at a college for your child, is specifically, how does this class and how does this class fit into a program that has a holistic vision, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end? It's not just an elective, it's not just an option, it's not just, well, they can take this or this, a distribution requirement. I think at least that the most powerful educational stories come from a learning experience that is cohesive and that can be explained, where every class plays a very specific identifiable role.
Yep, I think we agree. So let's get to some of the nuts and bolts, and then we'll go back to the philosophy, because your school's relatively new. So just tell us just where it is, what degree you offer, if any, and then why it's the kind of school it is.
Yeah,
Like why those logistical choices form what you would like to see a college be like.
Sure, we're brand new. So Hildegard College is a new Christian college. We're in Costa Mesa, California, which is in kind of the coastal area of Orange County, California. Our first freshman class just finished. We're speaking here at the end of January in 2024. So just finished its first semester in December of 2023. We're accepting applications for our second incoming freshman class to begin fall of 2024. We offer a single degree program and use a cohort model. So this means students that apply know that they're going to be in a course of study leading to a Bachelor of Arts degree in liberal arts and entrepreneurship. So a bachelor's degree in liberal arts and entrepreneurship. And all students, for the most part, take exactly the same classes, consisting of courses in great books and liberal arts, not just great books of the humanities, also mathematics and the natural sciences, courses in logic, courses in geometry and music, courses in the natural sciences through original texts. And then in their final year, students are studying metaphysical topics. So this, in our case, means a semester on moral philosophical texts and theological texts. Meanwhile, students are also studying what we call the entrepreneurial arts, which is a way of approaching economics and how to do something with your liberal arts degree in society through principles of leadership, through principles of social change, organizational structure, strategy, but always beginning with the formation of the individual. So we care about business and we care about leadership so much that we force our students to read all of these old books and wrestle with all of these big ideas and spend one class every single semester they're here in what's called formation, which is professional, spiritual, and moral formation, all kind of combined and integrated together. So that's what the experience of Hildegard College is like, leading to a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts and Entrepreneurship. Why do we, what your question was, why do we design it this way? Why is it like this? Is because what we see, and we're a unique school. If you want to become a specific, kind of mechanical engineer or a nurse or some other profession, that you do as an 18-year-old, and that a college degree in that particular area is required for it, then Hildegard College isn't for you. But what we see in young people is a drive, especially in classically educated young people, not to just kind of encounter and passively consume culture, but to make it, to build new things, to get into organizations and not just play a role, but to have some say and to shape it, right? They want to be leaders, many of them, they want to create and make culture. What that means for us and what that reflects is this truth of learning in general, which is that the highest forms of learning are always creative. And this is something that you can read in Plato, and you can read in Boethius and Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, but you can also read in the writings of modern learning scientists, where the lowest forms of learning are merely rehearsal of information, and then there's synthesis and analysis. The highest forms of learning, when you know that you've truly ingested something and it's become part of you, you can make something new out of it. So with that principle in mind, which I would argue is a classical principle of learning, we've created this sort of continuum of learning that begins with the foundation of the study of politics and theology, literature, philosophy, geometry, sciences, economics, and then builds up through a process of formation into the entrepreneurial arts, where students are learning by doing things. And we think this is important because if you might study the liberal arts, for instance, in college or in high school, and yet you're going to be to experience this dramatic shift, this jarring shift, when it comes to the real world, where you're asked to do things and you are going to be vulnerable to creative influences. You see this all the time. If somebody's a history major, I'll just choose one, and they're studying history and they're asked to write academic style papers on history, what their passion truly is what you see on their Instagram account, or what you see in their extracurricular life or their social life, where they're doing things, they're building things, they're collaborating with people. And that's natural. So we've brought that into the educational experience, and then require students to learn by doing things, to study entrepreneurship by working with real world organizations, creating products and services and programs for them.
So is that working part paid at all?
Think about it like a project-based model, where you might have your professor might say, okay, so we're going to learn organizational leadership by drafting an organizational chart for staff for this fictional company. Well, instead of that, students are doing that kind of work for real companies and real nonprofit organizations, churches, and ministries. In class, it is not paid, but a lot of our students several of our students at least, are working with some of these civic partners that are integrated into our curriculum in jobs. So lots of our tuition is relatively low for a private college at $16,000 a year. Still, students want to work and students need to pay for it. Our goal is that none of our students go into any debt. And so we do what we can to try to match them with these organizations if they want work. And that, the benefit of being a small college like us can actually pretty easily integrate into our courses. They're experiencing some challenge as they're working for X company or X ministry. They can bring that into the class, and the students and the professor can workshop that together.
So is it 16,000 including room and board, or that's on top? That's extra?
We don't have any residential halls ourselves, so it's not including room and board. Our students have a few options. They either live, if they're from the area, they live at home. Several of our students live with homestay partners. So we have, I could talk about this later, but we have church partners, and our church partners, through them, we find people that have, back house or a room, and they are excited by the opportunity to support an undergraduate at Hildegard by opening up a room to them for some great discount. If you're talking about Southern Orange County, you might be aware of the cost of living here, and so they greatly subsidized costs, and they live with them. You can live, in apartments with students and room with them. So it's 16,000, not including room and board, but inclusive of all fees and things like that. So this is why we're not calling it $15,998 or something like this. Very transparent about what the education costs. There's no hidden fees. Books are, students are responsible to buy books, of course, but
Mhm.
it's 16 flat.
Yeah. And then, so I know you're brand new. How many students do you have now, and how many are you hoping to have in the future?
In our inaugural cohort, so right now we have 5 undergraduate students.
Mhm.
We are looking to build a freshman class of no more than 15 for fall of 2024.
And that'd
And
be one cohort, 15?
yeah, so no cohort will be bigger than 15.
Mhm.
Down the road in a few years, we'll add a second cohort to each year, but won't grow beyond that. So if you do the math, the maximum population of our school in Costa Mesa will be 120 students, and we don't want to grow bigger than that.
And is that because of your facility, or there's a philosophical reason?
Philosophical reason, or I should say pedagogical reason,
Okay.
because of what we think it really takes to create a transformational learning experience.
So why that number?
Why that number? 15 students maximum in a class. Each class has, each year, I should say, could have 2 cohorts of 15 for 4 years.
I gotcha.
Yep.
So,
30 times.
and so that makes me, it makes it sound like to me, you expect to have at least 2 cohort leaders per level. So there'd be 8 of you leading, or are you having professors, or like, what's your staffing like?
So we now have about twice as many, almost 3 times as many faculty as we have students. This is because we have full-time faculty and staff that work at the school, but we also have purposely chosen to incorporate bivocational folks. So this might be someone who is an entrepreneur who wants to teach. We have a pastor who teaches in our Great Works program. We have a guitar maker or luthier who also has a PhD in philosophy who teaches logic for us. And we love that dynamic of practitioner scholars who teach our students. So we benefit from these great people in Southern California, this population hub, who are excited to teach in a kind of program like this in a small environment. So, and I should say the way that our liberal arts classes work is that we don't have just one professor that teaches every class for the entire semester. Depending on the book, depending on the individual topic, it could be someone else. So in their Great Works class this semester, which is the equivalent of 9 units or 3 classes all kind of jammed into one big class, they probably have 12 different faculty rotating through and teaching, getting their perspective, depending on, this person loves to teach Augustine, this person loves to teach Virgil, this person loves to teach Paul's epistles. And so they're getting these different perspectives and different faculty are coming in.
Okay, Amanda, I'm done.
You're done. Okay. Hey, so you've talked a lot about formation, and you look like you are thinking whole person, mind, soul, and body. So let's focus not exclusively, but on the soul. So how are your people connected to a local church, or how does that work? What does that look like in your whole person formation?
So we're a non-denominational college. So our faculty sign a statement confessing the basics of the Christian tradition in the Nicene Creed, but we have faculty from different Christian traditions. We don't write our own faith statement, but inherit the traditional faith statements of the church. So likewise, we have church partners. Right now, we have 8 of them. You can find them on the website. And they're from all different traditions: Protestant, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, different kinds of Protestant, Reformed, Evangelical, more charismatic, Anglican. And we have these church partners for a few reasons. One is that they're local to where we are and they want to invest in this, in our students. So they want to offer a place where students can come and worship. And as we encourage them also to serve in these church communities, which I think is an important part of church membership. And we don't want to convert students to any different Christian tradition. We want to empower them to go back to the denomination or home church they came from, if they go home, hopefully they do, and serve that community. So we believe that all of these traditions, I mean, when we look at these undergraduates, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds coming in, wherever they came from, could be served by learning the origins of the Christian faith historically through scriptures, through early Christian writings, through the history of Christian theology. And so our church partners are both places where where students go to serve and to worship. And some of the church partners come in and play a part in the educational experience itself, either by running formation class, which is an independent class we have. It acts as a kind of integration seminar, or by teaching maybe biblical texts in the Great Works curriculum that we.
So I appreciate that. It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility. It also sounds like that there's also going to always be a leaning towards some of our more formal churches and the Orthodox and the Anglican in some of it, when you just look at when people started reading the original text, as opposed to, I'm not guessing you have a whole lot of people that immediately go towards the other views you mentioned, which is fine. But I love the aspect of it that's going back and giving back to your local body, because that is, if we're forming virtues for adults, they don't stay in these environments, whether it's Hildegard or another post-high school experience forever. They launch into life of a 25 and 30 and 35-year-old. So that's interesting to me. You have a word called polymath on your website. So that looks like a giving thing that you're using, or what are you thinking there? You also have the word quadrivium on there. And can you help explain both of those to our audience? Because we need some terms defined here.
Yeah, polymath. A polymath is somebody who's not an expert only in one thing, but is proficient in many things, especially many liberal arts. So we're named after a 12th century Benedictine abbess, Hildegard of Bingen, she made medicine. She was a physician and scientist. She wrote a medieval morality play. She's probably best known as a musical composer. She and her disciples made these elaborate kind of visual tapestries of things. She was a philosopher and theologian. She was a polymath, right? We can think of other people, Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, people who are polymathic. And the argument that we're making in using the polymath as the kind of insignia of the school is a way of redirecting attention, not redirecting attention, but almost redefining entrepreneurship, which is not just, oh, I'm going to create my own company or something like that, but is rather somebody that understands the whole so that they can participate and serve through the parts. So a polymathic course of study like ours is necessarily cross-disciplinary. We're not teaching any courses just in English or just in mathematics or just in history. They're reading these texts in great conversation with one another. The fourth year of our entrepreneurship program, students undertake something called the Polymath Project. So where in a more conventional academic program, students might write a senior thesis like I did, you write a 50, 100-page kind of mini dissertation on a topic. The Polymath Project is an applied thesis. There's a reflective and written component to it, but students either individually or in groups or partners find an organization that has a need, and they create an initiative for that organization, or they build their own product, service, or program from scratch themselves and launch it. This is both a form of practice, but it's also a way of kind of giving them a taste of what life after college might be like and helping to sort of launch them out. So that's the Polymath Project, and that's why we're named after Hildegard of Bingen. The other word you mentioned, quadrivium, we use the word, super confusing word that nobody ever uses, the quadrivial arts. So those of you familiar with the 7 traditional liberal arts knows that the trivium, what Dorothy Sayers described as the tools of learning, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and then the quadrivium, music, arithmetic, geometry, and logic. Sorry, not logic. Music, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy are the quadrivium. If you think of the trivium as the tools for learning, we think of the quadrivium as the things that order the way we think. Music, right? Learning to understand and love music. It's both an emotional experience and an intellectual experience, and largely, especially if you're performing it, a somatic or bodily experience. So that's one example of how the quadrivium kind of shapes how you learn. And if you read some great thinkers on the liberal arts, great Christian thinkers like Boethius or Augustine or Thomas Aquinas, they'll describe an order to learning where you begin, and they're talking about, in this case, kind of childhood learning. You begin with the study of abstract things, of reason itself through mathematics. From there, you move to the study of things for which you need more life experience, like nature and the natural sciences. And only after that, they say, do you study things that are only properly known with one's mind? Things like goodness and being, things like God. And so metaphysics, the study of things properly known with the mind, kind of follow in course of that. So there's an order to the learning. So we use the term quadrivial arts to describe this course of 4 years of study in which students are moving from the study of mathematics and geometry to music and natural sciences, ultimately to moral philosophy and theology. It sounds very kind of almost Platonic and classical, capital C. But as students experience it, it's cumulative and highly interactive. We're not, when we study Euclid's geometry, students are going up to the board, they're reproducing from memory whatever propositions we're studying for that day, and then we have a philosophical discussion about how that makes sense. Does this actually prove it? What does it mean to prove something in the first place? Is this an observational or empirical way of proving it by measurements and diagrams, or is it a logical way of proving it? Is there a difference? Things like that. So that's what we mean by quadrivium.
I have a question. You've mentioned a fourth year a couple times. I know you're just getting started, but this made me realize that, is this a traditional like 2 semesters per year with summer off, takes 4 years to get through it, or do you have a different structure of time?
The traditional structure of 4 years
Right.
with study away opportunities and things like that mixed in. Students, of the 120 credit hours required, 9 credit hours or 3 courses worth come through electives.
Mhm.
And the way that we do electives is that students can petition to have a course taught. And if more than a couple of them want a certain course taught, it can be something in the world of praxis, something in the world of liberal arts. We'll teach that course, and we can teach it in an intensive month-long seminar in the winter or the summer, or we can include it in the semester's offerings. So 4 years long with this big applied capstone called the Polymath project coming in year 4.
Let's see. Are you accredited?
We're not accredited by an external accrediting agency. We have authorization or a license from the state of California, so we can offer a bachelor's degree. Our students do earn right now, before we get accreditation, dual credit from a partner university that is accredited. This is Providence Christian College is the name of it. So as you're going through the program, if you thought, okay, I want to transfer to another school or something, you can do that because you also have a transcript from an accredited university that's transfer friendly.
Can I ask, are you working as a for-profit or nonprofit?
Not for profit.
Not
Not
for profit. Okay. Yeah. So just it's pretty brave of someone to start a college right now. I think what you said on your website's right. We need the reset. We need new colleges springing up, and they actually are around the country. What are you seeing as the most difficult thing for you in starting the college? Is it funding, finding students, trying to explain the quadrivium? Like, what makes this job exciting that you have?
I think that what is one of the most challenging things is also one of the most exciting things, which is that the category of a new college is not really a category people think about. I certainly didn't when I was 20, 25 years old. And you might think of the category of like a new for-profit online school or something like that, but you don't think of, they're out there, but there aren't many new traditional colleges. And in some ways, we're very innovative and avant-garde. In other ways, we're as traditional as it gets. So what sorts of people, whether that's a community member or a donor or a prospective student, is willing to consider a startup college? And when I look at our student body now, it tells us something about it. Is the kind of person who is excited by something that is audacious and something that is new and yet grounded, and someone who wants to be a kind of co-founder. So our students right now really do act as kind of co-founders with us. We're very open with them and transparent. They don't have any flexibility in what they study. And that way it's anti-consumeristic. We're saying, this is what we think you ought to study. Come here if you want to learn with us. At the same time, they have a lot of say in the culture of the college, and we invite that. So the challenge is, how do you find the students that are going to thrive at a school like this? The exciting aspect is when you find them, you really do see them thrive. You see them flourish in a way. It's just so fun to be around the kind of energy that these students bring to the classroom. And as a founder, there's not something that's more joyful for me than seeing the college kind of taken out of my hands in certain ways by students and then pushed forward through their own aspirations, their own hard work, and their own convictions is a really, really, really gratifying experience.
Great. Well, I see you have your background in CLT, and that made me wonder if you have an unusual either way of vetting these students or certain standards they have to meet to enter, since the SAT is probably not top of your list.
Not top of our list. And as you might imagine, we encourage the CLT. We require no standardized tests, though. So students submit their ACT or SAT scores all the time. We encourage them to look into the CLT. We've offered scholarships for CLT test takers in the past. But our application process is very qualitative. The first thing that students are asked to do when they begin our application is to introduce themselves however they want to. There's a blank field. They can type out what they want. They could paste a conventional application letter, or they can attach files. So we've had students attach songs. We've had one student attach this. Actually, it was a classical conversations graduate attached an essay he wrote called "On Ambition," and it was this wonderful reflection on the nature of ambition, worldly forms versus godly forms, kingdom-minded forms. We've had students take photographs of art installations they've created or sequences of visual art and comment on them. So you can introduce yourself however you want to. The second question they'll encounter says simply, what is thinking for? And we ask students to write a few paragraphs reflecting on the purpose of thinking, and they can go anywhere they want with it. Later in the application, we ask them to reflect upon the role of the person of Jesus Christ in their learning experience, tell us why they want to come to Hildegard College, and we require every applicant to interview with us personally. So virtually, but personally. We get on the phone or get on Zoom with them and meet them and talk with them for a half hour before we make a decision.
So do you find that they're willing to join a small new school almost automatically defines them as at least a little bit entrepreneurial, or are you hoping to let anybody in and craft the entrepreneurship? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, I think if you canvassed our current students, a couple of them would say, I was so excited to come in here. I've already started this business. I started this magazine. I organize musical events and things like that. Other students would say, I don't really know what that means. What I want to do is study things that matter. I want to read the original text. I want to do it in a tight-knit community. I want to be challenged. And then I want to be supported by the mentorship that Hildegard offers. And I want to learn how to do something with my degree. And so that the entrepreneurial path appeals to them, because that's essentially what we're doing, is guiding them based in the liberal arts foundation, guiding them in what to do with that in life after college.
But you don't have something that specifically vets that entrepreneurial spirit.
No, we're not necessarily looking for students that self-identify as entrepreneurs in any way.
You're at least looking for people who aren't scared of the word, because you've got it foregrounded in lots of your literature.
You're right. It's self-policing in many ways, because the kind of person that wants to come to our school has already read what we say about becoming culture makers and engaging with society and learning things by doing them and acting. If you want to be the kind of student that's sitting in the back of the lecture hall or sitting opposite your professor on your computer, and you just want to read the textbook, take the test, get your degree and move on, you're not going to apply to Hildegard College anyway.
Do you see that being I see that changing as you hit that 120 mark, or?
Not at all. No. And we won't, we care so much about the fit,
Mhm,
the culture, that we wouldn't take a student that wasn't up for the challenge.
mhm,
One of the, I think, foundational requirements of a student entering into a program in the liberal arts, especially an adult student, is that they're willing to do so. And you can see this. Here's a tip for anybody who's listening who might be applying to Hildegard College. You can see this in the way people present themselves in applications. Are they choosing this? How freely are you choosing it? Do you know in a clear-eyed way what this school is offering? And are you voluntarily entering into this Christian learning community? Because without that free will act, you're not going to be authentic and honest in the classroom. And there's not much that's more poisonous to true learning than dishonesty. So we look for those signs of aspiration to join this kind of community, people that are up for the challenge. And we meet it with high support. So we're a very rigorous challenge, like lots of schools are, but we are in constant daily contact with our students, helping them, how's your job going? How are your studies? Are you keeping up on the reading? Do you want to meet about your paper again? We have a policy that you can submit and resubmit any essay you write for class as many times as you want, even if it's the final draft. You can just keep on submitting it and resubmitting it. And some students at least take advantage of that.
mhm, mhm. How many hours a week do the students meet?
So a typical schedule. So they take the equivalent of 15 credit unit hours. So they're in class about 15 hours a week. They also do other things though. So that is curricular things. So for instance, last week they were out at a classical school in Riverside, meeting with the headmaster and recording a podcast with them. They're creating a podcast together as part of their entrepreneurship course. And so, that was outside of, I think, typical class time. They were all doing that. So think things like that. We'll do things like we had class at the Getty once last semester discussing, I think, Plato's Symposium out in the courtyard of the beautiful Getty Center here in Los Angeles. Going to professors' houses for dinner and class, things like that.
That sounds good.
So I've asked you the spiritual question. Let's talk about the somatic question. How do you encourage the physical care of the body? Because you're talking about virtue development and character formation. And I haven't seen much in your curricula about that, but as I read the ancients, that would be equally part of the conversation.
Yes, we are. This is, I'll just say this and then I'll answer your question. I train in jujitsu, which is, this kind of like a wrestling like martial art. I'm trying to encourage the students to come to jujitsu with me because I have this romantic idea in my mind of this, ancient school of Athens where people wrestle and then they discuss philosophy, but maybe unrealistic. I think that we don't have any required PE course or health course. And I would say that it's in formation class. Formation is approached as a discipline, and we follow a methodology that my co-founder and entrepreneur Jeff Tanner developed originally for top leaders of organizations, and then converted it for an undergraduate called the formation method. That it consists of 8 practices, beginning with celebrating and listening, moving to identifying the challenge and exploring it together, then finally taking some commitment in response to the exploration of that challenge, and then tracking, holding one another accountable for it. So think about it as a kind of circle, this formation method that we practice alongside students and lead them in the practice of through their time at Hildegard College. And the challenges that they present and that they explore in formation class are sometimes spiritual, they're sometimes academic or social and relational, but sometimes having to do with their work, but they're also to do with their body. I feel like I'm not sleeping well, or I feel like I'm distractible and I can't sit and read for 3 hours. I feel like I'm not as healthy as I was a few years ago. And that's, if those things don't come up, faculty leads students to address those and consider those. And in formation, it's as you know, the text, so to speak, is the person itself. And so there's an aspect of you get into it, what you bring to it. And this is the importance of community and trust between students, very vulnerable with each other. And so potentially, I think, very transformative. And this is the context in which I don't teach formation class. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't divulge any particular examples from it. But this is the context, I think, in which taking care of the body, or the kind of somatic formation, as you eloquently put it, I think would fall under.
Good. Well, it sounds like, Matthew, you and your team have really thought through what you're hoping to have happen, and you're brave to make the launch. I know it probably took a lot of work. Nobody recognizes just to get where you are. So I appreciate the time that you have. You know, CC has a couple of different ways you can advertise, and then we always have some conferences and events that you can show up and talk to people. So let us know what we can do to let folks know there's another alternative in town.
Absolutely. I would love to. We absolutely love CC students. We talk with CC students from all over the country, and have had CC students come and visit our campus and sit in on classes. And it's always a joy to have them around.
Well, now that you told me they're putting together a podcast, you should have them interview Robert.
Great idea. Great idea.
Or at least Amanda, she's nearby.
Yeah.
So, Matthew, if a student, what is the website address? Some people might not be able to spell Hildegard, or not know how it's spelled, because that sounded kind of foreign.
Yep, Hildegard, 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 Hildegard. So our website is hildegard.college, not .edu or .com, hildegard.college. On the website, you can click the request info form, and you can sign up for our email updates about the progress and the launch of the school. There's an application form. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at president@hildegard.college. If you want to talk to an admissions counselor, you can email admissions@hildegard.college.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Amanda. Great to reconnect.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending your Wednesday.
You have a big adventure ahead of you, and there's just such a need, but seeing how to meet it is hard. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank
Thanks.
you for saying that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. See you later, Emma. Bye, Amanda. Bye, Matt.
Thanks,
Right.
Matt.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.